Hey everybody, Coach Tom, TL Performance. Welcome to another YouTube video vlogcast. I'm making up a word. Today, the devil is in the details. I'm reading, this is a good book by the founder of USANA, The Healthy Home. And a lot of these things he talks about in the book, whether it be toxins or nutrition or things that I've studied in my life as a personal trainer for my own personal health benefit. And when I started working with USANA, it really hit home because so many of these things were things that I had experienced. And the reason, so I say the devil's in the details, because one of the things that no matter what the challenge that I'm dealing with the encounter with a new client or an older client is confusion, whether it be for weight loss, for health, or for training. The information out there is conflicting and confusing because it oftentimes, number one, focuses on the symptom rather than the bigger picture. And when you start going down the rabbit hole of the symptom, then you miss all kinds of other things. And you're so focused on analyzing these details of what's happening with this symptom that you miss some really simple things about taking care of yourself. And I can relate to that in my own experience as a personal trainer, because when I used to take certifications, this was long before I was a KSI coach, I'd take a certification, and there are many of them, and they're always coming out because it's big business to try to come up with some new idea or some new solution and then sell a weekend seminar that you have to pay maybe $1,000 for to get your certification. And then you can put those letters next to your name and claim that you can do this innovative and in my opinion, silly solution to help someone, and it happens in health, nutrition, and training. So the basics of nutrition aren't that complicated, and it isn't a secret, and it hasn't been a secret for a really long time. It's just, in order for food products to be sold and for business to go on as usual, they have to keep reinventing and present, I'm bumping the table, present this perception of progress, and they need to have a problem to solve so that they can then make money off of it. And I'm just going to talk about a specific chapter in the book. Carbs are not created equal. And in fact, nowadays, when did it start? Was it with the paleo? The carbs were bad, right? It's a bad word to say carbs. And I know I think it was in the early 2000s for me when paleo started to become popular. And being that I'm an anthropology student before I started training, but that's all another topic because I think what I do now is anthropology. The paleo diet was based on an anthropologist claiming from fossilized excrement that they could tell about the dietary habits of people that lived a long, long time ago. And the claim in the paleo diet was that if a low carb diet, which is lower compared to the modern carb diet, is healthier. And I tended to agree with that because of this. Here's a statement from Dr. Wentz in their book about cereal. So breakfast cereal, let's use that as an example. And soda, because I also had I know I'm jumping around, Airbnb guest recently who probably drank a case of soda within like 4 days. That was all this person drank, and rather than like no water, just popping sodas one after another. Breakfast cereals weren't always a thing. They just, I think it was my specific dates might be a little bit off, but around the 1950s ish, could be slightly sooner than that, give or take 10, 15 years, let's say. Those that market breakfast cereals realized if they marketed to kids, then they could have a better chance of selling to parents. And they would add sugar and things to make them more appealing, as the kids would want to eat them. And you can blame them, like today being Halloween. Sugar is freaking good. And when you're a kid, you want to eat as much of it because it's not about health. You just love it. It tastes way better than eating broccoli. I got to admit. but you got to build that habit when you're a kid. So anyway, cereal like Cheerios, for example, will use the claim that fiber, because of the fiber in the cereal, there I go bump the table again, that it's a heart healthy diet because fiber is good for the heart and is good for digestion. But in cereal, everything is so highly processed oftentimes, and all the other shit that comes with it, you've essentially negated the health benefit of the fiber. And then the amount of carbohydrate per serving that Americans in particular have gotten used to eating is just exceedingly high. So it isn't that carbs are bad. It is the source of the food. And on top of that, since it is a poor source and then also an extremely high quantity, it's like a double whammy. So I wanted to highlight that. In decision making, it's very easy for us to want to label things. This is good, this is bad. And when it gets confused and diluted by using cereal from marketing that you see on TV and in the stores, and a lack of education around nutrition and even a lack of understanding, because medical doctors aren't really taught much about nutrition in medical school. It's a very limited amount of time in their curriculum. Most of it is depending on what they specialize in, but there's a lot of focus around drug therapies because that is the Western modality of medicine, is it to react after someone is sick or injured rather than preventative care. And there's nothing wrong with that per se. It's just that's how the model operates. But there's other models that you could use. So carbs are not bad, but the source of where you get them from is really important. And then the amount comes into play. And then there's other factors too to individualize, like how active you are, what age you are, and other influencing health factors like sleep, for example, and water and stress, and all of those things. So just be careful when you are exposed to advertising and trends, because you got to think for yourself and just ask questions on whether or not you want to accept those answers or not, because ultimately it's up to you to decide whether you want to believe something or whether you don't. And that's my 2 cents on carbs and for nutrition. So let's talk about some sources. Maybe we could talk about kinds of carbs. So there's some carbs are a lot higher in fiber and some are a lot higher in energy. And you can divide them up, like leafy greens and things have more of a fiber content, but they don't have a lot as far as energy. And root vegetables like sweet potatoes have more in energy, and they can have fiber. So it's important to look for both. The easiest thing to do at the grocery store is to find foods that you have to actually buy the food. It doesn't come in a package, doesn't have additives, it's not processed. So you can make it simpler rather than making it really complicated, but like looking for gluten-free. Because oftentimes stuff that is gluten-free is like, let's say a cookie, for example, or a cereal. And by that time, you've already gone down a path of decision making that the challenge is probably not the gluten so much as the choices you're making in the types of foods that you're eating. And then the same thing goes with training too. I had a client recently who has an injury, and he's getting confusing advice from doctors and from people who have looked after him. Not everyone, but some. And he's just missing some basic habits like taking care of his body. And I know we want to get immediate results. We all want to feel there's an emotional attachment. You want to feel good, you want to look good, and you can do that. But when you try to shortcut everything, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to get that, and you're going to end up causing another problem. So you've created a mountain to climb that you didn't need to create. So I don't know why you did that. You got to ask yourself why you're hooked on making that decision when it could be simplified. So anyway, that's my thoughts for today. If you have any questions or comments, put them down below or send me an email, tom@tlperformancela.com, and I look forward to the next one.